a movie in a theater is not just the big screen. It's the experience of watching it with a couple of hundred people, and all of us feeling the same thing as we go along. So that's a different way of, we have imagined our creations to be consumed, So there's a bit of a shock here right now. So, and it's a process, there is no, like, aaj theater band ho gaye to chalo OTT chalte hain. It will take time to adjust, and I think what is emerging is that there's going to be a clearer demarcation between what's going to play in the theaters and what people are going to be watching on OTT. Bigger films, more spectacular films would be, looks like that. Looks like that's what people would want to go to the theater for.
Hello everyone and welcome to ETimes Exclusive Catch Up. And today I have someone very special who's joining us on a Zoom call today. And he's none other than Mr. Abhishek Kapoor, who's a legendary and visionary filmmaker. And he's entertained us with the most amazing films. Hello sir, how are you doing?
Good, Sheena.
It's always said that a director is obviously the captain of the ship. And, he's the main person who has to, obviously, he has got the idea of what he wants to, basically translate into the screens through the actors and obviously other people. And, some actors are often quoted as saying that I'm a director's actor. So how do you see your actors as? Do you think that they are the director's actor, or you also, rely on their conviction or you rely on their process? How does it work for you?
Every actor is a unique piece, and it's a relationship that builds through the process of making a film. It starts when you narrate a script and how an actor responds to you, and also the kind of actor he is. Is he a method actor? Is it someone who's more spontaneous? Different actors bring different skills to the table, and one has to adapt to that. Because you've got to cast right. You've got to cast as close to the character as possible.
Right.
And someone who, that is one. The actor has to relate to the material and has to be inspired. Now, there is a certain vision in the director's head as to how it should play out. But it's not necessary that when the actor reads it, is seeing it the same way. There's always, a no man's land in the middle between in the communication, which kind of gets clearer once you start filming. So, you can talk about it and you can read it and you can, analyze it before you start filming. But the real exchange and the real output happens when you start filming it on set, in the real environment that you've created. And that's when the exchange happens, like what character I have in my head and how the actors interpreted it. And then over the next week, the first few days, like a week, 10 days is the most crucial. Where you find that middle path where you take what the actor has to offer, which you didn't think, that's what great actors do. They bring so much to the table.
Yes.
And then you take some of it and then you reject some of it. And then it becomes a mishran of both our visions. And then you hand over the character to the actor, and that requires a lot of conviction for me. Okay, I should be convinced now. He's ready to run with it. And after the week, 10 days is when you hand it over to the actor and then the actor starts to fly. That's how, the films I've made, this has somehow been the process.
And what about Ayushmann and Vaani? Just talking recently about your film, the film that you made. So what about them?
Yeah. Well, Ayushmann, I don't need to give him any vote of confidence because he is a highly acclaimed actor. And he's also a champion of films that have represented a lot of social causes out there. Yeah, he's such a fabulous actor and he's an incredible human being as well, He's got that quality, inherent quality about him that is of goodness. You can see that, it emanates in his personality.
Definitely.
So sometimes what happens is you cast actors who can completely become the character and they transform. But in this particular case, I wanted Ayushmann to reflect in the film, in Manu. So that is why I cast him and I didn't go cast somebody with a fantastic physique. I wanted a piece of Ayushmann to be in this movie. And, he's from Chandigarh and he really took to the script when he read it. So, that was just great. But as far as Vaani is concerned, she's a slightly different actor. And all credit to her for actually taking this part, which most leading film actresses would probably not consider, because they worry so much about how they'll be perceived and stigmatization of playing a part like that. But when she read the script, she just jumped at it. we had a few discussions, because she wanted some clarity on how I was looking at it. Because, this is a very thin line to walk this character. It has to be well represented. And if you go wrong, you could go completely wrong,
Right.
And so after our first few conversations, I think she was convinced, or at least she felt that we were both seeing it similarly. And she's, for me, actors need to be really good listeners, because they have their skill, but they have not written the script. So they need to listen and absorb a lot, especially in the initial few days before they make it their own.
Right.
And she is a very good listener. And I remember the first few days, she would not get the motivation because I spent 2 years on the script. She has just walked in. So the film is actually simple to consume, but it is very layered. Like, we've not cast a trans person in the film, but we've really gotten into the headspace of a transgender person and the kind of thoughts and the kind of challenges they would face.
So I want to know from you your views of releasing films on OTT platforms, and what do you have to say about it? Like, some films are obviously getting pushed because, the filmmakers believe that they're better shown, if they're shown on the big screen. But as a filmmaker, as a producer, what do you think? What are your thoughts on films being released on OTT platforms?
I mean, there's no denying that OTT is here to stay. You've got to see the glass half full or half empty.
Right.
I mean, in today's times, when all the theatres are shut and there's COVID all around and there's so much fear, one way to look at it is that thank God for OTT. It's out there. And this movie that I prepped the lockdown came in, and the first lockdown was very scary. People thought there was COVID everywhere, and we went out, before we went to shoot, I prepped the whole film on Zoom, so because I couldn't meet people, but at least I had Zoom to, we're doing this interview right now. And now the theatres are shut, but we've got an OTT platform where we can have our films shown on that platform. So there is a good side to it. And also I think that it's here to stay. But I think as filmmakers and as people who always, there's a format, there's a 3-act format, where the film is from the beginning to the end, it's a complete package in itself, as opposed to a TV show,
Right.
And we've always imagined that people will come collectively and watch it in a theatre. A movie in a theatre is not just the big screen; it's the experience of watching it with a couple of hundred people, and all of us feeling the same thing as we go along. So that's a different way of. We have imagined our creations to be consumed, So there's a bit of a shock here right now. So, and it's a process, there is no like aaj theatre band ho gaya to chalo OTT chalte hain. People take time to adjust, and I think what is emerging is that there's going to be a clearer demarcation between what's going to play in the theatres and what people are going to be watching on OTT. Bigger films, more spectacular films would be looks like that's what people would want to go to the theatres for.
So now quickly, I want to play this fun game with you. So I'm going to ask you some quick questions and you tell me like what you think about them, okay? If there's a novel that you feel should be adapted into a movie, what would that be?
There are so many books out there and so many filmmakers have adapted books. I've adapted a couple of them.
Any one that you'd want to do now? Or you think it should be adapted by anyone else as well?
I can't think of any right now.
Okay. Any filmmaker or writer that you'd want to collaborate with? Can be from any industry.
It is, I don't know, it might not happen, but I would have loved to collaborate with Salim Javed.
What gets you most excited and motivated about your job?
And if there is a story or an idea that clicks in my head, and then I just get so restless, and I'm just like, I'm up all night sometimes. I feel like I should just make the movie tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And how do I get it made as soon as possible? That's what great ideas do. As a filmmaker, this is a real world where you and me are talking, but There is a parallel world that I do live in, where we write when we are writing, and it's a very painful process actually. When you're writing a film, because sometimes you don't have breakthroughs, and you start feeling suffocated because you have to find a breakthrough, because that is probably as real to me as this real life is. Where those characters live and their motivations and where they're coming from, and I believe in them so much that they actually have life.
Right.
And so I'm living in two parallel worlds simultaneously.
Any message for young filmmakers or upcoming filmmakers? What would you want to say to them?
These are great times. I think back in the day, either you were doing TV or you were doing mainstream commercial films or massy movies. Then the multiplex era came around, where you could make more different kinds of movies that were for more niche audience. But today, I mean, there are so many different kinds of formats. You could make movies for half an hour, you could make it 2 hours, you could make a 3-hour film, and it could be well enjoyed on an OTT platform. You can do different kinds of stories. The world has just like exploded for storytellers and content makers. And so if you are young and you're just making a foray into being a filmmaker and storyteller, you couldn't have it better. But there is so much competition out there, and I think what will help you sustain and make a mark is originality. The world is changing so rapidly, and the more like this conversation when we started, we spoke about how movies and stories are a reflection of society. Society itself has changed so much over the past 2 years, and it's going to rapidly change even as we go ahead. So, I mean, the world is your playground, and it's a very, very exciting time that I see in the future.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. We wish you all the best for your upcoming projects and whatever is keeping you excited and motivated. Thank you so much for this. Thank you. Stay safe.
Pleasure talking to you, Sheena. Thank you so much.
Bye.